About a year or so ago, a year. What a way to start the video. A few months ago or so, I made a video sort of going over my relationship with Star Wars and essentially how much I really, really love certain aspects of it, but, have never thought of it as a series that I live and breathe for on the whole, like something like The Legend of Zelda or Final Fantasy, or stuff like Haikyuu, Hunter x Hunter, Attack on Titan sort of thing, where I really, really love and respect the series overall. It really means a lot to me. It was quite formative, but it never dug quite as deep, maybe. And I sort of outlined the stuff I love about it. I talked about Andor as my favorite Star Wars media. I talked about my love for Revenge of the Sith, which we'll get into in a second. And I also talked about how I guess, in a lot of ways, I felt like there was untapped potential for me, because I also really loved Knights of the Old Republic as a video game, Knights of the Old Republic 2, and I was revisiting it. Since then, as you guys know, I've talked about this on this channel, in streams, in Twitter, media thread stuff, in Discord. I've since played Star Wars and Knights of the Republic, really, really like it. I replayed and essentially first played Knights of the Old Republic 2, adored it, absolutely adored everything about it. Then coinciding with my desire to get back into books and reading novels, I read Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, and then I got into the prequel novels. Part of my continuing efforts to sort of, well, not even efforts, just my reinvigorated sort of fascination and passion for Star Wars. I feel more passion for it in the last year or two, and now continuing forward, than I have since 15 years ago or something like that. So I read the prequel novels. I think I talked about that in that video that I want to, or maybe the video I talked about books, whatever. I read The Phantom Menace. I thought it was quite good. There were some problems I had with it, maybe not, more limitations than problems, where maybe the prose was a bit clunky, a bit repetitive, maybe it didn't sort of scratch the itch when describing the world I sort of wish it could have, and maybe didn't sell the vastness of certain planets and geography or environments or whatever. I don't know, just little things here and there that made it a good book rather than a great one for me, but I still really appreciated it. I think it streamlined the political elements of the plot in a way that made it much more understandable and digestible that I really appreciated, because I don't think the movie does that very well at all. And I liked it. I liked several things about it. Then there was the Attack of the Clones, which I read, which I pretty much felt very similar about it as I did The Phantom Menace, where I sort of felt like there, again, sort of clunky, lots of, I guess, phrases that the writer, the author, would kind of lean on, that would, to evoke emotion, that would work the first few times, but it kind of, the novelty wore out a little bit. And yeah, just maybe limitations or a lack of greatness, and it was just well written, it was just good. But I liked it. Both, I think, were good expansion pieces to their respective films. But when I got to Revenge of the Sith, because I've read these, for anyone who isn't aware, years ago, when I was a kid, in high school or something, I don't know. I read them, but you know when you're young and you can't really fully appreciate works that have maybe as much detail or density or complexity. I felt that way about that when I was going to revisit them this year, that there was definitely untapped potential there. I experienced this when I rewatch or replay games like Knights of the Old Republic 2, or stuff like that. And so, along with the reputation that the Revenge of the Sith novelization has, I had lots of big expectations for this one. And I would have been disappointed if I felt the way about it that I did about the first two. Mostly because I think Revenge of the Sith is a better work. It's just my favorite Star Wars movie story. But also because I remember it being that good. And also, I tend not to mold my expectations off of what other people say. but other people love this book. It's lauded as one of the best Star Wars books. So I was really excited for it. I just finished reading it half an hour ago, and after some reflection, I kind of wanted to make this video because I am in awe at how good it was. Now, I'm not a bookworm. I'm not someone who's read tons of books throughout my life, but I've read some, and it is one of my favorite books, without a doubt. It was such a profound, epic, grand, yet intimate and poetically written. The prose in this was such a step up from the first two Star Wars prequel books. And the way it got across the emotions, the way it deepened the relationships within, the way it explored the politics and the theming was, while also sort of getting into background details of the Star Wars universe that were so interesting and intrinsic to its identity, referencing Nar Shaddaa, referencing things that are in the extended universe. It was an incredible book that has really heightened my appreciation for Revenge of the Sith, which I already loved. I love Revenge of the Sith, and there are some moments in that movie that the book could not measure up to, but likewise, a couple of examples were the lightsaber fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan. To me, there's some things that sequence, words cannot do justice for me. It's just how I feel about it. The music, the occasion, the profound emotions, the heartbreak, and also that scene. The scene where Anakin and Padme are almost communicating wordlessly across the grand expanse of Coruscant. Stuff like that, scenes like that, there will never be a better, a superior version for me in written form. However, there were lots of superior elements in written form in this book compared to the film. One thing I love that it did is it really, tenfold enhanced the political conflicts. It really enhanced the back and forth battle between the Senate, between Chancellor Palpatine, Emperor Palpatine, and the Jedi, and all the factors therein. The senators and the way it planted seeds for the senators who would then, decades later, rebel in Andor and A New Hope and Rogue One going forward. We see Mon Mothma, one of my favorite Star Wars characters, primarily due to Andor, in this book. In the movie, of course, but in this book, it was so great to see her. But we have a few sequences with Bail Organa and his perspective and how important it is for him to seed the roots, the seeds of rebellion here as these horrific times are happening. And it is just so well from after the introductory mission, which so beautifully introduces Anakin and Obi-Wan and their relationship in such a poetic, lyrical way. It does such a great job at establishing what's going on in the Senate, what's going on, what the Clone Wars have led to on Coruscant and the surrounding systems, and the Jedi's role and how they are growing frustrated with the Senate, with the state of the Republic, and Palpatine specifically, and what they suspect something in his office, not necessarily him, because why could it be him if, how could it be him? What more could he possibly want? If the Emperor was, if Darth Sidious was Emperor Palpatine, Chancellor Palpatine, excuse me, what more could he want? He would just take over now. He has everything. Little did they know what he really wanted, which was a couple more things, one of them having to do with, a young Jedi aspiring master. But mostly, and throughout that, it was just so thrilling. The dialogue, it really portrays Yoda and Mace Windu and Obi-Wan not just as iconic Star Wars characters with interesting characterization, but really as four-dimensional people with different ideological views of what the Jedi are, what their role is, how they should approach it, how they should, and sort of the sort of approach they should do going forward against Palpatine for the sake of the Republic, for the sake of peace. And the more it goes on, the more all three sort of start to realize how buried they are, how they have already lost. And it's so great because I don't know. To me, Mace Windu is cool in the movies, but he's not much of a character. Yoda's a good character, but he's not amazing throughout the movies for me. I think he's essential for what he needs to be, but I adore how this book was able to get into their psychologies and have them disagree and butt heads and have Mace Windu be so fiery and channel a darkness into his light, and how desperate he is to save this republic that he loves so much, and how things just sort of degrade and decay and how it turns on him. Mace Windu was one of the best characters in this book, and I was shocked at how good he was, how layered and complex, or maybe not complex, but how layered and authentic and intriguing and compelling his psychology was, and how he would bounce off of Obi-Wan and Yoda and contrast them, and how well-established his ideals were. It was fantastic. Same with Yoda and Obi-Wan. The maneuvering, the posturing done as Palpatine would enhance his grasp on the Senate, and how sort of he would be granted more and more powers under the guise of him being reluctant for it, but really, things had been maneuvered by him and by his people to make it so that they had no other choice, really. Due to the war. The infighting, the ideologies clashing, like I just said, his grim, dark determination, Mace Windu's grim, dark determination, his conviction, it was incredible. And then the relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan, I think, was sold well in the films due to the actors and a lot of the presentation bits, but I never really felt it. It got me deeply emotional. I thought it was great. This raised their dynamic to me from great to out of this world, this book. The way it established how they were more than brothers, how they were like two parts of the same person, how there were two sides of the same coin, two parts of a whole. And that's easy to talk about, but I really felt it in this book. This is Anakin. This is Obi-Wan. Who they are. So clearly defined, their personalities, ideologies, their psychologies, and their relationship with one another, and how they bounce off one another. And it internalized them. It characterized them so incredibly well. I was shocked at how good it was. And thus, it made the heartbreaking end to this book so good. The Anakin's inner dragon, how it delved into his psychology. Anakin, to me, is the best character by far in the prequels. To me, more or less, in the whole original 6 films, all the films, to be honest. But this elevated him. It made his psychology even more visceral, even more gutting, and it made his transformation feel even more tragic. I finished this book, and I just kind of stared off into space, feeling awful. A bit of hope, because of the way it ends as A New Hope, the start of what would come after Andor, into Andor and all that. Into A New Hope, and it's very gripping in that way. There's hope on the horizon, this tiniest light, right? But I couldn't help but just feel such immense despair and anguish at what became of Anakin. It's so sad. It's so sad. It's such a tragedy. But yeah, you often think of Anakin's loneliness when you see these films, and you think of the prequel stories. But what really I think was nailed in this book to me was Obi-Wan's. He feels completely adrift. He wants to help Anakin, but he knows that could lead him down a dangerous path, but he doesn't want Anakin to go down a dangerous path, but at the same time he trusts that he won't, without seeing that he is part of the problem as well. He trusts in the Republic, and he trusts in the Jedi, but there's always something in the back of his mind, Qui-Gon's voice maybe, telling him, are those the right things I should be doing? Should I be doing something more, something different? Is this the right thing to do? And he is just kind of isolated from everything, and things just deteriorate as he tries his best, but it's never enough, and it's heartbreaking. It's incredible. Padme isn't hugely significant to me, or hugely significantly elevated in this film to me, in the book to me compared to the film, but she was good. It was done. She was what she needed to be. And another huge thing is General Grievous. To me, in the film, General Grievous is kind of a gag character, like a shade of a mini-boss with a cool design. In this, he's really interesting. He has no comedy, very little to no comedy, and the pain he carries with him and how it turns into this sort of like burning destruction, how he carries with him this sadness, this haunting sadness of what he was. It's very resonant. And I don't know, just the way it's swept. I thought that maybe if I were to have one problem with this book, it's that the introductory mission was super long. I love how it established Anakin and Obi-Wan and their relationship. I love that, and I love the sort of comic bits to really sell how natural how naturally they are each other's brothers, more than brothers. But I think the action was a bit long-winded. Something I've realized as I've read these books and my renaissance of Star Wars and books is that sometimes it takes a very specific type of action to really pull me in. A lot of the time, action just kind of goes on too long for me in books. I don't know if anyone agrees. Regardless, I think that introductory mission went on a bit long for me. But after that, in spite of it being really well written, after that, we went from incredible, heartbreaking, emotional, profound point of view with Anakin and Padme and him foreseeing his death, to Obi-Wan and the tug of war between Mace and Yoda, and to Senator Palpatine, or Chancellor Palpatine, and his grip, his iron grip. It made him fascinating, by the way, and how things were slowly coming to a head as the Jedi were forcibly scattered across, and the political machinations as Palpatine used Anakin, and then the Jedi Council used him, and then Obi-Wan has this moment where he feels, at the end of a chapter, he says, Anakin will never trust us again for the way we've used him, and I don't think he should. He says that as he blinks back tears. It's such a beautiful, lyrical way of expressing the emotional profundity of this story. I can't speak highly enough of it. It's spoiler alert for my top 100s for next year. Episode 3 will play a part in my top 100s ahead of honorable mentions, and it is because of this book enhancing my love for it. It was incredible, and because of this, because of loving the sort of really powerful way that specifically Palpatine and the way this book explores the Sith and the ideologies of the Jedi versus Sith, kind of like KOTOR does it, not quite as deep into it, but does it very well. I love that, and it made me immediately pick up, order the Dark Plagueis book by James Lucano, I believe his name is. So that may be my next book. I'm not sure exactly. Next books on the agenda for me are that Darth Plagueis book, Fate Stay Night reread, it's been ages, and a Song of Ice and Fire reread, and the First Law books, which are right over here. So that's what I got next, but so I might do that next, before moving on to non-Star Wars books. Either way, I figured I'd share this. Let me know if you've read this book and what your thoughts are about it. It was so incredible. I just had to record this. Yeah, I loved it, and my Star Wars renaissance just continues. Wow. If you have, for some reason, not read this book, The Revenge of the Sith novelization by Matthew Stover, and maybe are really interested in it, or really like the film, or anything I said interests you, do yourself a favor, pick it up. It's I think any fan of the Revenge of the Sith story would do themselves a service by picking it up and checking this out. It's everything you love enhanced for Revenge of the Sith. I can't speak highly enough about it. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts on any of the above, and I'll see you in the next one.